Chapter 4: Uraeus, From Mental Slavery to Mastership. Uraeus is a symbol for the soul, the power of the soul, or in essence, soul power. It was at least 2,000 years ago when the early Africans, the seed people of all humanity, first used the Uraeus symbol to denote man's soul. With the early African priest-scientists, the soul was not just a mere object of religious or philosophical speculation. It was rather the object of intense, highly disciplined scientific study upon all conceivable subjects, and concluded that the operative quality of the soul and the essence of life energy were synonymous. The early African priest-scientists recognized commonality in the manifestation of life and soul energy upon all levels of existence, in the planets of the solar system, the sun, moon, earth, stars, galaxies, and beyond. In the Earth's atmosphere, seasons, animals, vegetation, minerals, land, and oceans, in the core of the atom, and in those realms incomprehensible, if not imperceptible, to the physical sense organs. Long ago, ancient Africans discovered that life energy on all planes moved along a helical serpentine path, and subsequently symbolized this notion in the form of a serpent, Uraeus. The serpent was also utilized as a symbol of the soul because it best alluded to many attributes and hidden components of the soul, as well as the processes involved in its development. It was no surprise that when Western science discovered the key of life to be a chemical compound, DNA, the compound was found to exist in the shape of a helix, the same spiral shape formed by a snake when it sits in a coiled position. Of particular importance to these same African scientists was the study of life energy within man, the study of the soul. They found that the image of a serpent best captured multiple operations of soul energy. This soul energy was found to travel along a path that also looked like a snake, the spine. If the energy were allowed to remain at the beginning of the path, at the base of the spinal column, then the organs located at that particular site were energized. The organs at the base of the spine are the sex organs, and then energized, produce a type of consciousness that is largely focused up on the physical plane, leaving the individual obsessed with physical desire, such as indiscriminate lust, overwhelming greed, and insatiable quests for power. However, when this same energy is developed and moves upwards to the top of the spinal column, the organ at the top of the brain, the pineal gland, becomes energized, and a process that produces a higher level of consciousness in which the third eye or mind's eye becomes operative. For the purpose of this discussion, we shall use the name soul eye when referring to the third or inner vision of the unconscious mind's eye. Ancient African scientists found that as a person develops a soul eye consciousness, the powers of perception become vastly magnified. This enabled the individual to perceive a deeper true reality with greater clarity. On this level, heaven was in fact tangible, and frequent spiritual highs were not uncommon. With an operative soul eye, the individual was reported to have developed godlike powers of intra- or extrasensory perception through the amplification of each of the 5 physical senses. Moreover, by having complete control of the physical body, the individual with an operative soul eye was reported to be capable of materialization and dematerialization, teleportation. It is with these thoughts in mind that the ancient Africans, particularly the Ethiopians and Egyptians, placed the serpent upon the crowns of their royalty. Usually, the Uraeus serpent was placed over the mid-forehead, site of the pineal gland, symbolic of soul energy raised to this level and of cosmic consciousness. It was with these same thoughts in mind that the ancient Africans designed the internal structure of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Each passageway and room is representative of a definite stage in the development of soul power. In fact, the entrance to the pyramid was aligned with the North Pole star, Alpha Draconis, a star which is part of the serpent-shaped constellation, Hydra, snake. Moreover, it is the same serpent constellation, the Hydra or Pleiades, around which our sun revolves once every 25,000 years. Thus, when one considers factors such as gravitational and magnetic fields, variations in sunlight, changes in the axis of the Earth's rotation, the occurrence of glacial periods, and the almost dramatic ramifications of the relationship between the Sun and Pleiades system upon the Earth, one can begin to grasp the significance of the innumerable factors analyzed by the African scientists. The scope of the ancient African scientists' analyses of the soul was infinite. However, it must be realized that the greatness of their work is the byproduct of highly developed soul eyes. With their expanded levels of consciousness and faculties of perception, they produced extraordinary works, most of which are completely beyond the comprehension of today's Western scientist. The average Western scientist, attempting to replicate works of the ancient Africans, is faced with a monumental roadblock, in that such an undertaking requires, as a prerequisite, a certain level of self and soul development. A scientist attempting to understand the soul must initially understand its operation within himself/herself. Such a person must fully grasp the ramifications of the serpent uraeus, thereby experiencing certain manifestations of royalty, magicianship, priesthood, and go through comprehensive phases of initiation, death, resurrection, and transformation. However, only when the soul eye level has been attained can one truly experience and make operative the foregoing. Royalty being synonymous with one's ability to exercise complete control over the physical body. Magicianship, the ability to utilize advanced knowledge in the manipulation of energies beyond physical comprehension. And priesthood, the ability to communicate with other advanced masters of vast powers, all of whom are working towards the fulfillment of soul tasks and positive growth of the universe. The African priest scientists found that travel along the uraeus serpentine path could result in death or change in one's current level of consciousness. On the path, one must first be resurrected from the lower level of physical desires and become initiated through a demanding, disciplined, educational, soul-developing process, which, when completed, ultimately transforms the aspirant into a master, one in full communication with his or her soul, in which all things are possible. Black people today have not yet defined their soul essence. Very few know their history, culture, language, or basic physiology. Without such knowledge, the basic master plan or foundation for the scheme of things will remain a mystery. A type of slavery persists, wherein the soul remains virtually imprisoned. Asa Hilliard, in his introduction to the 1970 reprint of the book Stolen Legacy by George G. M. James, further defined this type of slavery as soul or self-containment. Mental bondage is invisible violence. Formal physical slavery has ended in the United States. Mental slavery continues to the present day. This slavery affects the minds of all people, and in one way, it is worse than physical slavery alone. That is, the person who is in mental bondage will be self-contained. Not only will that person fail to challenge beliefs and patterns of thought which control him, he will defend and protect those beliefs and patterns of thought virtually with his last dying effort. During the 1960s, people of African descent vigorously tried to free themselves from various socioeconomic conditions, only to witness a steady erosion of their hard-fought gains in the 1970s. Why did this major effort go underground? Why did leaders and organizations internally ego trip and fight among themselves toward the ultimate formation of fragmentary organizations? Why did so much disunity prevail when the cry was for cohesiveness? Certainly, the desire to be free did exist, and the vast struggle that was launched did touch most levels of society. Why then did it go to sleep? Hilliard attributes this sleep death to the existence of a condition of mental bondage. His basic premise is that it is the invisible violence of mental bondage that prevents our people from successfully waging a struggle to become free. In order to see the total perspective of this premise, it is critical that we examine the term self-containment. Webster's Dictionary, 1968, defines self as the identity, character, or essential qualities of a person. Taking this one step further, we find that identity and character is the blueprint from which one's sense of being of selfhood is developed. Containment is the policy of attempting to prevent the influence of an opposing idea, notion, or political system from spreading. Thus, if all parts of a person are constructed from a basic blueprint located within the soul, then self-containment literally means prevention of the soul's blueprint from growing. Moreover, since the mind is also a part of that which is constructed, soul containment likewise stifles the growth of the mind. It is here that we can see the manner in which soul containment produces mental bondage. With soul containment, The mind is unable to develop at full capacity. The person in such condition is alienated from their soul, in which lies the key for total mental as well as spiritual and physical development. The mind can become fully developed only when life energy of the soul reaches and energizes the pineal gland. Until this occurs, one cannot proceed along the serpentine path leading from physical to cosmic consciousness.